Yeah, just give me a sec to look that up, and yep, like clockwork. Also, by the looks of it, mango is the only flavor you sell. You really should get to know your merch before the execs find out, Manatsu. We opened this week with U-mounted Manatsu providing us with some totally necessary exposition that ended up attracting the attention of this Go Nagai reject when he mistook her catchphrase for making fun of his cue ball. And done surprisingly with these designs, Bulk, Skull, and Spike here pulled out all the stereotypical anime bully tropes, prompting the arrival of a stereotypical hero. Was that Proto Man's theme? Nah, but seriously, this whole sequence was probably the best part of this episode, as not only was Asuka's effortless beatdown of these buffoons really well animated, the BGM here was amazing, with Shiho Terada once again showing off her love for Showa anime music. She has good taste. Thus, after an old school beatdown, Asuka gave a very Rom Stoll-esque intro.
名乗るほどのものじゃないけど、滝沢 Asuka.
Takizawa. By any chance are you related to Time Fire? Impressed by her abilities, Laura and Manatsu right off the bat decided to recruit her as the last cure for their team. So later, they met with her, and Laura completely disregarded that there might have been other students around who might have seen her. Then again, maybe I should just be glad she didn't come out as just a decapitated head again. But yeah, Asuka did at least have one of the most natural reactions to a pink-headed mermaid telling her to become a magical girl and refused her request. Oh, so this is what Raph and Philo do when the shield hero's not around. Yeah, I know it's the wrong character and everything. It's the closest thing I own. Besides, Mashu is the best. Though seriously, VA connections aside, I love the interactions between these two, with Asuka accurately pointing out the toxicity of this fish on her back. In the end, she refused to call a second time, especially after hearing the word team. Their pursuits to recruit her were later halted by the student council president, as she wanted to ask Manatsu about her club proposal that... Okay everyone, loosen up your hands first, get ready, and go! I think even Sango could recognize the amount of BS on that paper, but also didn't want to completely denounce her leader's disorganized goals. Very rightfully so, the prez refused her proposal, and when Manatsu tried to fix it, likely well past the deadline at this point, she was told that all of the club rooms had already been taken. Asuka, for reasons that would be hinted at later, tried to stand up for them, even though, again, I'm in full agreement with the president here. Okay, am I the only one who kinda wants to see this girl become the Sixth Ranger? I mean, I'll be perfectly honest, while I think Asuka has been cool and everything, and we'll get to her stuff in a bit, I just kind of like this girl's design and demeanor a lot more. I don't know, maybe it's because she kinda reminds me of best ninja mom ever. Not to mention, this character's VA did play a role in the last series, which is usually a good sign that they'll play a cure in the next season, just saying. Anyway, Asuka ended up tsundereing her way into helping to find a club room. While their search was literally like trying to find an empty bathroom stall, Minori managed to find an unused storage house. It was full of old junk, including Pegiton's granddad by the looks of it. Still, after getting permission from their teacher, they managed to score it as a club room on the condition they cleaned it up first. Minori drew up a plan for them. Isn't it interesting when life imitates art, right? Laura helped a little too by managing, and yeah, you can guess what that amounted to with her. Still, to be fair, she did provide some decent direction, and even kind of won Asuka over, who possibly knew people worse than her.
You see, everything works out.
Later, while enjoying the aforementioned source of diabetes this season, we learned a little bit more about Manatsu's life back on the island that didn't have many kids her age on it, resulting in her excitement for now being a part of a group. Of course, Asuka still didn't want any part of it. Ooh, sorry, I'm pretty sure that's another team's gimmick. You might want to look elsewhere. Thankfully, she was only joking, and rightfully thanked Asuka for all her help. Obviously, the redhead herself did at least kind of enjoy being part of the group, but something from her past was preventing her from wanting to fully join them, which possibly had to do with the president as established with this really nice shot. It's worth mentioning that this week's outing was the first not to be written by head writer Masahiro Yokotani, but rather a total newbie to this franchise, Konomi Shugo. I can't really say much about her work, as it mostly comes from the Aikatsu franchise, where she served mostly as a secondary writer, and of which I have not watched any of it. I have seen her work on Iwakakeru, which I thought was okay, but it's also hard to gauge a manga adaptation. Though, just going by the sheer quantity of her work, I can say she's still a bit of a relative amateur, so time will tell how she holds up. Anyway, since this was written by a secondary writer, I think a lot of the stuff here is purposely being left vague so that Yokotani could properly fill in the blanks later. It's a perfectly fine practice, as we are at least establishing a lot of things here, and it will likely lead to less backload later. Anyway, it was about time for the Monster of the Week, with Numeri once again launching an attack, though surprisingly not using any of the junk the Precure were taking to the recycling plant. Pity, because I would have loved to see a fight with Pegaton's grandpappy, but instead...
You're not there, though!
You know someone on Twitter is gonna have a meltdown over this. But yeah, in case you were wondering, totem poles have actually existed in many areas of the world, not just North America. I would hope that's just a replica that's now been turned into a Dharma Toshi toy. Jeez, where's Yuko when you need her? Anyway, after doing a bit of a Planeteer pose, appropriate since they're being environmentally friendly in this episode, the team transformed and engaged the multi-tiered monster, and yeah, it's clear where the animation budget went this week. I will say, it is interesting that the monster took advantage of the numbers game in a way that would actually make Asuka's arrival a necessity with it splitting into 4. Also, this bit of Manatsu practicing her fire drills was hilarious.
Rollin', 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 rollin'.
But yeah, it was about time for someone to make her dynamic entrance and rather easily just get a ring. With that, we got the last transformation for now, and it was a good sequence. Much like Sango, it did suffer from having too many pauses, though in this case it was at least justified, as it highlighted Asuka's somewhat bombastic nature and need to show off all of her poses as though she were a freaking Kamen Rider. It's clear amongst all the cures, she's the one who cares the least about makeup and just wants to showboat for the most part, resulting in a very dynamic sequence to say the least. So, if I were to give a final ranking on what I consider to be the best to worst transformations of the season, it would probably go Manatsu, Minori, Asuka, and Sango, sadly. With things even out, the Precure managed to reassemble the Daru totem pole under Asuka's direction, and allowed Laura to retrieve the motivation energy. Asuka then delivered the finishing blow, with a short but very impactful tennis ball finisher. A friend of mine has informed me that this and the transformation sequence were done by a relatively new yet up-and-coming talent named Yu Yoshiyama, who really seems to like her firebirds and big stupid explosions, which I can respect. She also seems to have a thing for glowing eyes during attacks, so maybe she's a Zangar Zonful fan, can't blame her. But yeah, while the attack itself was very impressive, I'm not completely sure about all this tennis stuff. I mean, when I think flamingos, I think more croquet, though I think that gimmick's also been taken. Nah, but seriously, there were some hints that the sport might be significant to Asuka in some way. Again, I think they're purposely leaving things vague for now, but you could guess what happened. And that's for how I would rank the finishers of the season so far. I would go Manatsu, again, thankfully Sango, Asuka, and then Minori. Overall, none of these sequences look really bad or anything, it's just that some look better than others, with again, I think a certain lead cure reaping the benefits of her position a little. Though, do feel free to give me your personal rankings in the comments below. And with that, they defeated the evil pole of Totem, and the episode ended with Asuka being a little more accepting of the concept of a team. This was an intriguing introduction for the last member of our core team of the season. Asuka, so far, hasn't shown a ton of personality just yet, though to be fair, that's likely by design, as they're clearly saving some of her backstory for later. How that'll pan out remains to be seen, of course, but for now, this was yet another fun episode, in spite of a little shoddy animation. Obviously, I'm not talking about Yoshiyama stuff or the fight with the bullies, not sure if she animated that too. I'm talking about pretty much everything else in the fight, though to be fair, I think they were trying to concentrate more on her sequences, which do stand out more because she has such a unique style. That aside, this was not at all a bad looking episode. In fact, I loved a lot of the stylistic choices like the bully's ridiculous designs, or the music that were clearly meant to bill Asuka like a classic anime protagonist right out of the Showa era. And again, like many of those characters, they purposely kept her backstory vague for now, which worked out well for the still green writer Konomi Shugo. That said, this still did feel a little too much like a secondary writer script, with characters, aside from Asuka, being reduced down to their base elements. Sango didn't do much of anything, Minori contributed a little, while Manatsu was, yeah. I will say, I do appreciate that she was the one who legitimately won Asuka over rather than Laura this time. I just hope stuff like her club proposal doesn't become the norm for her. Other than that though, this was a good basis for Asuka's introduction. I'm certainly interested in learning more about her past, especially if it involves the president. I mean, she doesn't have to become a cure or anything, but I do think we could see some decent drama between these two. Time will tell who betrayed who on those courts. If you haven't seen it yet, I actually managed to get my Healing Good overview up. Yeah, I'm just as surprised as you. I'll tell you right now, this one went through a few rewrites here and there, but I think I managed to turn out something that at least got across most of my feelings regarding this flawed, yet still really enjoyable show in my opinion. Next up though is part 2 of my Gold Princess review, which should be out next month depending on how my move to the new place pans out. And in case anyone's wondering, reviews for the OG series might be out in the near future. I think I should probably cover it after Crunchyroll finally got some better quality rips of it on their site. Thanks to one of my commenters for pointing this out, by the way. Anyway, look forward to it. And until then though, for now my friends, and if you'll excuse me, there's some stuff in that closet that needs to go to the recycling plant.